Hello friends, family and followers. My name is Mike and I'm pretty excited to share this video with you. This is my first, so I hope you enjoy it. Now, 125% per year return. That is crazy. If you understand percentages, you will know that that sort of return is totally insane. Money in the bank earns a couple of percent. My property investments return me about 6.5%. Warren Buffett, the richest and most successful stock market investor alive today, has achieved an average of 17.1% return since the year after I was born. Some would say 125% return is ludicrous, and most would say extremely risky. I would say, just because I'm doing this doesn't mean you should. Only you can decide what you believe. If you know any facts that make this riskier than how I perceive it in this video, please share them with me in the comments below, because I don't know what I don't know. But without further ado, here's what convinced me to invest a couple of grand in what I consider safer than a lotto ticket. This company is called Tailored Brands. It's a men's fashion retailer with about 1,450 stores, although they have closed half a dozen of them recently, and another 5 are slated to close before the end of January. Tailored Brands owns Men's Warehouse, Jose A. Bank, K&G, and Moores. Now, back in 2014, CEO Douglas Hewitt ended up in a takeover battle with Jose Bank. And ultimately, Tailored Brands ended up buying Jose Bank for $1.8 billion at the end of 2014. Now, if we go back to 2014, you can see that Tailored Brands was turning over about $2.5 billion a year in the trailing 12 months. When they purchased Jose Bank, they hit $3.624 billion a year in about the middle of 2015. And between now and then, over the last 4 years, they've slowly declined all the way back to about 3.15 billion. So they've lost 450 million in turnover, and now they're only 650 million above where they were back before they bought it. So that appears to have been an absolutely terrible investment. Even worse, if you come down here to the last quarter, they've just had the worst quarter on record with turnover of only $729 million, which is down about 3% on the 750 odd million the same quarter a year ago. So it is not looking flash. But at least, if we go to their profit and loss statement over here, for the 3 months ending October, they've still brought in just shy of $28 million from continuing operations, so what the shops make minus the restructuring costs. They did lose a lot of money, but they are in a bit of a restructure. So at least the fundamental business is still profitable. Recently, things have been shaken up a wee bit, and a man by the name of Dinesh Lathi was appointed the Chief Executive Officer. So that's the CEO, and this happened back in March 2019, right at the end. He had been the chairman on the board since March 2017, and had been on the board since a year before that in March 2016. He came on after the takeover nightmare. Now, Dinesh worked as the CEO of Kings Lane between April 2014 and June 2016. Prior to that, he had various roles with eBay, which I would imagine would be quite useful, especially as Tailored Brands transitions onto a multi-channel and website frontage as well, and he did 8 years in investment banking, where possibly he ran into a man by the name of Michael Berry. Now, Michael Berry is an investor in tailored brands and became famous after the 2008 global financial crisis by identifying, faults essentially in the lending system and identifying the worst performing loans prior to them actually defaulting. He could see it coming, and he made a absolute bucket load of cash betting that they'd fail, essentially. So he became famous in the movie The Big Short.
Kind of brilliant.
Fraud has never ever worked. Eventually, things go south. When the hell did we forget all that?
How can the banks let this happen?
Excellent movie, totally worth a watch. If you're sick of the old YouTube right here and hearing my voice and haven't watched that, go and have a look. It's quite surreal, the reality we live in. Anyway, Mr. Berry is now an activist investor and is definitely on the back of our new CEO, Mr. Lathy, at Tailored Brands. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Tailored Brands needs a superstar team, and turning to the balance sheet here, you can see that they currently only have $21 million in cash. So not a huge amount of cash floating around. Worse still, if you dig down to their assets and liabilities, you can see here they've got $2.54 billion in assets. And if we scroll down to the liabilities, they've actually got more at $2.6 billion in liabilities. So they own less than they owe, and are losing money when you include the restructuring costs. So on the face of it, this does not look like such a wonderful investment. Now, there are some glimmers of hope though. It's not all bad. While they only have around $24 million in cash, total liquidity at the end of the quarter was $477 million when including the revolving credit facility. So they seem to have enough cash to get through this bump in the road. The downward spiral also seems to be abating. In the latest earnings call, they said October over October last year was up, even though the quarter as a whole was down. And comparable store sales at Jose Bank finally turned positive. So they seem to have turned Jose Bank stores around, and the declines at the Men's Warehouse have slowed. They also seem to be forecasting that they've hit the bottom, with expectations of comparable sales to be between -1 and +1, flat to up to 2, except for Moores, which is just still getting smashed. I'm not sure why, but the majority of the stores are in these two brands. This makes up 80% of their revenue. So that it is beginning to show signs that they have hit the bottom. So, if my hypothesis is right and they have hit rock bottom, now they need to turn it around and increase sales. And there are glimmers of hope there as well. They seem to be experimenting across all channels, from the clothing lines they offer through to the advertising mediums they use, and assessing each of these channels and their stores. They're closing the stores that are losing money, or the dead wood, as I would call it. And I would expect to see quite a few more stores close in the next year. From a lean startup perspective, this excites me. This is a more scientific approach, coming up with ideas, testing them in the retail environment, and scaling the successful ones across their 1,000 or so stores. Now, if this is done correctly, it should turn the ship around, and we should start to see an increase in sales. And I'm hopeful that Mr. Lathy will succeed in doing this over the next 6 to 12 months. So far, he has done a pretty good job at steadying a sinking ship. Finally, this is a business that has been returning on average $200 million in operating earnings per year and has a market cap of about $220 million. Management also have authorization to buy back $38 million in shares and have been buying them at an average price of $4.28. So anytime the price is below $4.28, we know that there is a company with $38 million in its back pocket keen to buy some shares. This should steady the share price drop. It's not to say it won't go under 428, but we know when it is, there is amplified demand until this $38 million is spent. It also means that when that $38 million is spent, that will remove 18% of the shares, which effectively will give you 18% more of the company compared to what you purchase today. Now, before I get into the mathematics of how I intend to make 125%, is there anything you know that I missed? I don't know what I don't know, so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, because this lotto ticket, these shares I've purchased, can still be refunded currently without loss if I've made a mistake. Do you think they'll go bankrupt? Now, if you enjoyed my breakdown of Tailor Brands and want to encourage me to keep sharing my research, click the thumbs up button and let me know. And apparently doing that is also helpful for the YouTube algorithm. If you'd like to hear more from me about other companies I'm investing in, click the subscribe button. Or if you've got a great company you think is worth buying, suggest it below in the comments and I'll take a look when I get the chance. But for now, let's dive into the maths and answer the question you've all been waiting for. How am I going to make 125% return on Tailored Brands stock? To explain that, we're going to have to dive into Excel sheet world. So, welcome. Follow my little blue box here around the screen as I talk through this. Now, to make a 125% return, one thing that will need to happen is Tailored Brands are going to need to reinstate their dividend. This is how we're going to get to 125%. I've purchased the shares for $4.36. Historically, up until more recently, Tailored Brands have been paying a dividend of 72 cents a year. Now, they've got about 50 million shares, so if we multiply that by 72 cents a year, that's a cost of $36 million a year. For a company that's making 200 million a year, or has been, that shouldn't be too difficult to re-establish once they've steadied the ship. Now, at 72 cents on my purchase price of $4.36, that provides me a 16.5% return. Still a very far way from the 125% I spoke of. Now, I use what some would consider a risky strategy, and I borrow a lot of the funds that I buy the stocks through. So I use IG.com, and they provide me 90% of the funds I wish to spend on Tailored Brands. They charge me an interest rate of 4.4%, and I have purchased through this platform 3,000 shares in Tailored Brands. So my total share ownership at the moment is $13,080, and to purchase those shares I've had to front up with $1,308 in cash. Now, if the shares drop, I also have to cover that loss, so it can be a bit of a risky strategy if you don't understand debt. Fortunately, I've been in the property market my whole life and understand debt well and am perfectly comfortable with it. But if you're not, perhaps this strategy is not for you. So I've borrowed through IG rather, $11,772. And when Tailored Brands reinstate their dividend, they'll be paying me out $2,160 per year in dividends, assuming they return to 72 cents a share. To own these shares, I'm paying in interest $518 odd per year to IG for the money they've lent me, which will leave me a net profit of $1,642 per year after paying interest when they re-establish a dividend. So I've put $1,308 in. I should be getting $1,642, which is 125.54% return as promised. Now, this seems risky, so let's assess the risk over here. Tailored Brands has dropped to $3.70. That's the lowest share price they've hit, and my stop loss kicks in at $3.60, so just below that. Remember, Tailored Brands are buying $30 odd million worth of shares and have been paying on average $4.20, so I do not think it's likely that they'll hit $3.60 again, or ever. They haven't hit it yet. If they do, though, then I stand to lose 76 cents a share because I've paid $4.36 and I'd be selling them at $3.60. And on 3,000 shares, that would lose me $2,280. So that's the risk I stand to lose if everything goes wrong and my lotto ticket fails, essentially. My potential capital gains are pretty awesome though. If you go back to the 14th of May 2018, Tailored Brands stock was $35.94. Now if we got back there, that would make me $31.58 profit per share. Multiplied by 3,000 shares, that's a little bit shy of $100,000 profit. And just for interest, that's a 7,243% return on top of the annual dividend that will hopefully re-establish it at 125% a year for me. I think a more realistic target is probably around 24.04. So that was their December 4, 2018 high. They definitely traded between 36 and 24 for that period there of about half a year. But that's kind of the exit strategy or exit price I'm looking for. That will give me a profit per share of $19.68 or just shy of $60,000. These are my upsides, this is my potential downside, and this is what I stand to gain while I wait for it to happen once the dividend shares are re-established. Until then, I'm going backwards by $10 a week. Well, that's all, folks. I hope you found a nugget or two of knowledge in there, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you very much for watching. I'd also like to say a quick thanks to the YouTubers Hyperchange, Cold Fusion, Now You Know, Financial Education, Ali's World of Stocks, Tesla Daily Podcast, Joseph Carlson, Shadow Trader, Graham Stephen, and so many others for sharing your wisdom and inspiring me to share mine. And just a quick thanks to Inspector Gadget, SV Dallas, Practical Psychology, and 5 Minute Crafts, who I borrowed a smidgen of footage from. From Waiheke Island, New Zealand, take care, and I'll talk to you again soon.